Diddy's former girlfriend, Cassie Ventura, has just turned 40, and from the outside, the way she lives today might look sad. She was once one of the most recognizable women in American music, one of the most photographed women associated with one of the most powerful figures in hip-hop history. But today, she is barely seen. No red carpets, no music, no Hollywood appearances, no interviews. She has simply disappeared from public view. If you compare the life she has now with everything she once had and everything the world expected from her, it can easily look like a fall. But there is a much deeper story behind that disappearance, and most people do not know the full picture. It is a story about more than a decade of silence, a federal courtroom, a decision that changed the direction of her life, and a woman who stepped into one of the biggest public battles in entertainment history before eventually choosing to disappear on her own terms. So stay with us, because what Cassie Ventura did after everything that happened is not what most people expected. Yo, what's good, fam? Today, we're going through the complete story of Cassie Ventura, where she came from, what she endured, what she eventually did about it, and why the life she lives today looks almost nothing like the world that once made her famous. Let's get into it. To understand where Cassie is today, we have to go all the way back to the beginning. Cassandra Ventura was born on August 26, 1986 in New London, Connecticut. She comes from a mixed background. Her father is Filipino and African American, while her mother has Mexican and West Indian heritage. Even while growing up, Cassie had the kind of appearance and natural ability that the entertainment business would eventually spend years trying to define. She could sing, she could model, she had stage presence, and in an industry that rewards people who can combine all three, it seemed inevitable that she would eventually get her opportunity. That opportunity arrived in 2006 when her debut single, Me and You, was released and quickly became a major success. The song had a smooth, understated sound that separated it from much of what was playing on radio at the time. It eventually climbed to number 3 on the Billboard Hot 100. For a debut record, that was more than simply impressive. It was a statement. Cassie was not an unknown artist who needed years to prove herself. She entered the industry already looking and sounding like someone who belonged there. She had the music, the style, the presence, and enough commercial success to immediately attract serious attention. And one of the people paying the closest attention was Sean Combs, the founder of Bad Boy Records and one of the most influential figures in hip-hop history. This is where Cassie's story began to take a very different direction. She signed with Bad Boy and developed a professional relationship with Combs. What initially existed within the music business eventually became personal. By 2007, Cassie and Combs were romantically involved. From that point onward, their lives became connected for the next 11 years in ways that were highly visible to the public, and in other ways that would only become known much later. Their relationship attracted enormous attention. Combs was not simply a rapper or producer, he was a mogul. He had created Bad Boy from the ground up, transformed it into a major cultural force, helped launch the careers of some of hip-hop's biggest names, and accumulated extraordinary wealth and influence along the way. Cassie, meanwhile, was a young artist whose career and public identity increasingly became associated with his world. They attended major events together. They were photographed together constantly. For years, the public viewed them as one of entertainment's most recognizable power couples. But behind that public image, Cassie would later describe a very different reality. The world would not hear her complete account until she decided to speak publicly. In November 2023, Cassie Ventura filed a federal civil lawsuit against Sean Combs. The accusations contained in that lawsuit were extremely serious. Cassie accused Combs of assault, physical violence, and trafficking. She described their relationship as one involving control, coercion, fear, and abuse, rather than the partnership the public had seen from the outside. Her lawsuit presented detailed allegations of abuse that she said had taken place throughout their relationship. Combs' legal team immediately denied the allegations. Then something unexpected happened. The lawsuit was settled less than 24 hours after it was filed. ABC News reported that the figure was publicly revealed for the first time during courtroom testimony. It is important to make one point completely clear. The settlement was not an admission of wrongdoing by Combs. A civil settlement does not mean that the defendant has been found guilty, but the lawsuit still changed everything. Once Cassie placed those allegations into the public record, the way people viewed her, Combs, and the relationship they had watched for years changed dramatically. And the lawsuit didn't end the story. Instead, it helped open a much larger door. Other women and men began coming forward with their own allegations and accounts. Lawyers who had been working on other potential cases began paying attention. Federal investigators were already looking into matters surrounding Combs, and soon one of the most powerful figures in hip-hop would become the focus of a federal criminal investigation. Eventually, that investigation led to his arrest and indictment. But before the indictment came something that would have an even more immediate impact on public opinion: the footage. In May May 2024, CNN released hotel surveillance footage from 2016. The video showed Sean Combs physically assaulting Cassie Ventura in the hallway of a Los Angeles hotel. The importance of the video was not simply that it was disturbing to watch. It was significant because it provided the public with visual evidence corresponding to an incident Cassie had previously described in her lawsuit. Before that footage became public, there had been allegations, a lawsuit, and a settlement. But video is different. It turns written allegations into something people can actually see. When the public watched what happened in that hotel hallway, the conversation changed dramatically. Combs later released an apology video, but the damage to his public image was already enormous and in many ways irreversible. The footage became one of the most significant publicly known pieces of evidence connected to the broader story, not because the video by itself established every allegation or automatically proved criminal guilt, but because it made visible an incident that had previously existed primarily through words and legal documents. For a culture that often demands victims provide proof of what happened to them, the footage gave the public a visual record that the written allegations alone could not provide. Federal prosecutors continued moving forward. In September 2024, Sean Combs was indicted on charges including racketeering conspiracy, trafficking by force, coercion, and transportation to engage in prostitution. The indictment described what prosecutors characterized as a long-running criminal enterprise involving abuse, coercion, violence, and what prosecutors referred to as freak-offs. These were described as extended sexual encounters with male commercial sex workers that Combs was accused of arranging and directing. The indictment represented one of the most significant federal criminal cases ever connected to a major figure in the music industry, and it set the stage for the trial that would place Cassie Ventura at the center of the most public chapter of her entire story. When the trial began in 2025, Cassie took the stand. She testified for approximately 4 days, and she did so while 8.5 months pregnant. Think about that for a second, fam. Cassie was 8.5 months pregnant when she entered that courtroom, sat before a jury, looked across the room at a man she had once considered her partner, and began telling them what she said had happened during their relationship. Her testimony was not simply a story about a relationship that had ended. It was a detailed account of how she alleged Combs used his wealth, influence, and business empire to control different parts of her life, including her career, finances, and personal decisions. She testified that beginning when she was 22, she was coerced into drug-fueled, multi-day sexual encounters with male escorts, events prosecutors referred to as freak-offs, while Combs allegedly recorded them. According to her testimony, the experience became so overwhelming that it effectively destroyed her R&B career and pushed her into an extremely dark psychological state. She described experiencing fear, financial dependence, and the overwhelming influence of Combs as factors that made leaving feel almost impossible, and she told this story under oath in front of a jury while the entire legal system watched. Prosecutors considered her a crucial witness because Cassie was not some distant or peripheral person connected to the case. She had been identified as victim 1 in the federal indictment. She had spent more than a decade inside the relationship and circumstances prosecutors were presenting as part of the alleged criminal enterprise. Her ability to explain to jurors what she said she had personally experienced was therefore central to the government's case. Then came the cross-examination. It was intense, as cross-examinations in major federal trials often are. Defense attorneys challenged Cassie's credibility, her memories, her motivations, and the timeline of events. They attempted to create doubt. That was their role as defense lawyers, and Cassie remained on the stand through all of it. At the same time, she was carrying her unborn son. She had announced her pregnancy in February 2025 through a simple post featuring the number 3 and photographs of her baby bump with her 2 daughters. In March, she confirmed on Instagram that she and Alex were expecting a boy. Then, less than 10 days after she completed her 4 days of testimony on May 27, 2025, Cassie gave birth. Alex Fine was present throughout the trial. He was there during her testimony, and based on what was publicly observable, he appeared to provide the kind of support and stability that Cassie's earlier relationship had lacked. He was someone who showed up, someone who stood beside her instead of over her. And while the world was still processing everything Cassie had revealed in court, she and Alex were focused on welcoming their son and beginning a new chapter together. The jury eventually delivered its verdict on July 2, 2025, and this is where we need to be precise, because a lot of information circulating on social media got the result wrong. The jury acquitted Sean Combs on the racketeering conspiracy charge, as well as the trafficking charges. However, he was convicted on 2 counts of transportation to engage in prostitution under the Mann Act. Those were federal felony convictions that carried a real prison sentence, but they were not trafficking convictions, and that distinction matters legally. Cassie's testimony did not lead to a trafficking conviction. That is the accurate legal description of what happened. At the same time, her testimony placed her experiences directly into a federal courtroom and into the official public record. The jury could accept certain parts of her testimony while still finding that prosecutors had not proven the most serious charges beyond a reasonable doubt. That is how the criminal justice system works. The mixed verdict reflected the complexity of a trial involving numerous witnesses, extensive evidence, and multiple disputed issues. Then on October 3, 2025, Sean Combs was sentenced to 50 months in federal prison. That comes out to a little more than 4 years, with credit for time he had already spent in custody. Cassie also submitted a victim impact statement to the court during sentencing. In that statement, she described the relationship as a horrific decade of her life, marked by abuse, violence, force, and degradation. She told the judge that she hoped the punishment would reflect the courage it had taken for victims to come forward. She also expressed hope that the court would consider the many lives she believed had been damaged by Combs' alleged abuse and control. And then something interesting happened. As the sentencing was completed and the media attention slowly shifted toward other stories, Cassie Ventura began disappearing from public view, not from the world, from the spotlight. There is an important difference between those two things. She kept her social media activity extremely limited. The posts that did appear were generally quiet and personal. There was a birthday message for her husband. There were a few family photographs. In some of those pictures, her son's face was covered with an emoji. That did not necessarily indicate that Cassie had vanished. Instead, it suggested something much more deliberate. She appeared to be choosing what parts of her life she wanted the public to see and what parts she wanted to keep protected. That decision became even clearer in May 2026, when a court declaration she had submitted became public. The declaration, dated May 1, 2026, was connected to an ongoing civil lawsuit filed by a man named Clayton Howard, a former male escort who had brought legal action against both Cassie Ventura and Sean Combs. In that declaration, Cassie stated clearly that she currently lives outside the United States and does not intend to return to live there. She confirmed that she remains a United States citizen, but is no longer a resident of California. She also explained that if the lawsuit continued, appearing in New York would be more practical for her, because that is where her attorneys are based, rather than traveling to Los Angeles. But Cassie did not reveal exactly where she lives. Her representatives have not publicly disclosed the location. No specific country has been identified, and that silence may be one of the clearest signs of what she wants her life to look like now, because after years in which almost every part of her existence was connected to the entertainment industry, the media, or another person's influence, now she appears to be exercising something she did not always seem to have before: control over her own story. Think about the life Cassie once lived: the red carpets, the cameras, the celebrity parties, the major events, the magazine appearances, the constant photographs. For 11 years, she was also constantly connected to one of the most photographed, documented, and powerful men in American music. So much of what the public knew about Cassie Ventura was defined by her relationship with Sean Combs. Her name was frequently mentioned alongside his. Her professional career had been connected to his record label. Her social life revolved around his world. And even after their relationship ended in 2018, the public conversation surrounding Cassie continued to be linked to him. Then came the lawsuit, then the hotel footage, then the federal indictment, then the trial. Throughout all of those events, Cassie was still operating inside a story that was largely about someone else. Even when she was the person telling her own story, the surrounding conversation was about the federal case against Combs. Her courage was discussed in connection with what she alleged he had done. Her identity was repeatedly framed through the relationship. But now, geographically and personally, she appears to have moved somewhere outside that entire environment, and the cameras cannot easily follow her. Today, Cassie is a mother of 3. Her daughters are Frankie and Sunny, and she also has the son she gave birth to shortly after completing her testimony. She is married to Alex Fine, who has remained publicly supportive throughout the most difficult period of her life. The family appears to have built a life far removed from the entertainment spotlight. Alex Fine is a fitness entrepreneur and actor. During Cassie's pregnancy, he spent months away filming the British crime drama Moorland while Cassie was pregnant. She had spoken openly about how difficult that period of separation was. These are the details that usually do not dominate headlines, but they help create a picture of what Cassie's life may look like today: quiet, private, stable, and, at least from what is publicly visible, very different. That difference becomes even striking when compared to the life Cassie described under oath. She spoke about fear. She described coercion and violence. She testified about alleged control over her personal life and her career. And she described circumstances that, according to her account, made it increasingly difficult for her to continue being the artist she had once wanted to become. Because Cassie really did have a career before Sean Combs became the dominant part of her public identity. She had a successful debut single. She had a record deal. She had genuine momentum. She had already demonstrated that she could succeed in the music industry. But by the time her relationship with Sean Combs ended in 2018, her music career had largely faded away. For years, she released little new music of major significance. Her testimony gave context to that disappearance from the industry, even though it cannot by itself establish every reason her career changed. There's also the financial side of what happened. Cassie's 2023 civil lawsuit against Sean Combs was settled for $20 million, a figure she later disclosed during her federal testimony. There have also been reports involving another civil action related to the Los Angeles hotel, where the 2016 assault footage was recorded, with some outlets suggesting that settlements connected to the broader situation could total around $30 million. However, the specific amounts of additional settlements have not been confirmed to the same evidentiary standard. What we do know is that Cassie received a significant settlement from her lawsuit against Combs, and that gives her something extremely important: the ability to build a different life. Money cannot erase trauma. A settlement cannot erase 11 years of someone's life. It cannot undo what happened or remove painful memories. But financial independence can remove some of the practical barriers that keep people trapped in harmful situations. Cassie now appears to have the resources to choose where and how she wants to live, and she made that choice. Now she is turning 40, August 26, 2026, 40 years old. And the contrast between the woman Cassie was at 20 and the woman she appears to be at 40 is really the emotional center of this entire story. At 20, she was an emerging R&B and pop singer. Her first major single had reached the top 3 on the Billboard Hot 100. She was young, she was ambitious, she had a career beginning to take shape, and she was entering a relationship with one of the most influential men in the music industry. At that age, she could not possibly have known what the following 2 decades would bring. None of us really know what our 20s are going to create, and none of us know what they might eventually cost us. But now, at 40, Cassie is a mother, she is a wife. She became a central witness in one of the biggest federal cases involving a major music industry figure. She gave testimony under oath. She submitted a victim impact statement to the judge who sentenced the man she accused of abusing her throughout their relationship. And she gave birth to a son shortly after completing her testimony. She is also a woman who has physically removed herself from the country where much of this story unfolded. She has chosen to live somewhere else, somewhere private, somewhere she does not have to constantly be watched, somewhere she can make decisions for herself. And that is why calling her current life simply sad misses the point. When people say Cassie's life today looks sad, what they often mean is that she is no longer visible. She does not constantly post online. She does not regularly appear at industry events. She rarely gives interviews. She is not releasing music that dominates the charts. She is not constantly attending the parties and celebrity events she once attended. If fame is your definition of success, then yes, it may look like Cassie disappeared. But fame is not the only measurement of a successful life, and perhaps it was never the measurement that mattered most to her. For years, visibility was part of the world surrounding her: the industry, the public image, the celebrity relationship, the cameras, the constant attention. And that visibility did not necessarily protect her. Sometimes being constantly watched does the opposite. Sometimes the spotlight can become part of the environment that makes it harder for someone to escape. Cassie's decision to step away can therefore be viewed differently. It does not necessarily represent retreat. It can represent a complete redefinition of what she wants her life to be. For most of her adult life, the public knew Cassie in relation to somebody else. She was the singer connected to Bad Boy. She was Combs' girlfriend. She was Diddy's ex. She became victim 1. She became the star witness. She became the woman shown in the hotel footage. Almost every public identity assigned to her was connected to a relationship or event that she described as deeply painful. Now, she appears to be creating an identity that belongs to her alone. She is a mother raising 3 children somewhere in the world away from the constant attention. She is a wife to a man she has publicly described as her best friend, and she is someone who, based on everything that has become public, has survived an extraordinarily difficult chapter and emerged with a family, financial stability, and the ability to decide that she no longer wants the life of a celebrity. She appears to want something much simpler: to be present, to feel safe, and to be free. And the significance of what Cassie did goes far beyond her own personal story. When she filed that civil lawsuit in November 2023, she became the person who opened a door that could no longer simply be closed. Afterward, additional women and men came forward with their own accounts. The federal investigation grew more intense, and Cassie Ventura, identified as victim 1 in the federal indictment, eventually became one of the central witnesses in the criminal case against Sean Combs. Her decision to speak publicly brought attention to allegations of years of abuse that had remained largely hidden behind wealth, luxury, private jets, expensive homes, and one of the most carefully protected celebrity images in American entertainment. That is part of the legacy of what she did, and there is nothing sad sad about that. It was significant, it was historic, but it is also important to remember that the federal trial was never only about Cassie. Other witnesses appeared, other evidence was presented, other aspects of the allegations surrounding Combs were discussed and documented through different sources. The government's case was built around multiple witnesses, different pieces of evidence, and a range of allegations, and the final verdict reflected the complexity of the case. The jury acquitted Combs on the most serious racketeering and trafficking charges, while finding him guilty on 2 transportation counts. Any honest account of the trial has to acknowledge both sides of that outcome. Cassie's testimony was powerful and important, but the jury's decision was based on the complete case presented to them, not on one witness alone. Still, Cassie's position in the story was unique. She was identified as Victim 1, she was a major witness, and her 2023 lawsuit helped trigger a chain of events that eventually brought the entire situation into a federal criminal courtroom. That role cannot simply be erased from the history of the case. And now, the story has reached a place where the cameras cannot easily follow. In just a few days, or perhaps by the time you are watching this, Cassie Ventura will turn 40. She will be 40 years old while living outside the United States. She will be surrounded by her children and her husband. She will not be celebrating her birthday on a Hollywood red carpet. She will not be posing for an industry magazine. She will not necessarily be surrounded by celebrities at some exclusive entertainment event. Instead, she will be somewhere private, somewhere quiet, somewhere she personally chose. And maybe that's the most important part of this entire story. Somewhere she chose. Because for much of her adult life, other people seemed to have enormous influence over her narrative. There was the record label, there was the relationship, there was the media, there was the lawsuit, there was the federal investigation, there was the trial, there was the verdict. And throughout it all, her own voice was often being interpreted through somebody else's story. Now that appears to be changing. She gets to decide what her life looks like. She gets to decide what she shares. She gets to decide what remains private. She gets to decide where her children grow up. And she gets to decide whether the public gets access to her at all. Cassie spent years living in an environment where almost everything about her public life was visible, except the truth she later described. Then she walked into a courtroom and told that story under oath in front of the world. And now, as she reaches 40, she seems to be choosing the exact opposite kind of existence, a life where very little is public, a life where her family does not have to be constantly photographed, a life where her location is not known, a life where the public does not have unlimited access to her. And perhaps that is not a sad ending. Perhaps, after everything she experienced, it's the first chapter of her life that truly belongs to her. That's the part people can easily misunderstand. They see a woman who used to be famous and is now rarely visible. They see a singer who once had a major hit but is no longer chasing the music business. They see someone who once appeared alongside one of the biggest names in entertainment and now lives far away from that world. So they assume something was lost. But what if something was gained? What if disappearing from the spotlight was not losing her life, but reclaiming it? For years, Cassie was surrounded by people, cameras, executives, celebrities, photographers, and public expectations. Today, the most important people in her world may simply be her husband and her 3 children, and there is something meaningful about that contrast. The entertainment industry teaches people that staying visible is the same thing as succeeding. If you are not being photographed, you are forgotten. If you are not releasing music, you are irrelevant. If you are not attending events, you have fallen off. If you are not constantly posting on social media, people assume something is wrong. But those rules are created for entertainment.
They are not rules for living a private life. A private life can be a successful life. A quiet home can be more valuable than a red carpet. Being present for your children can matter more than being recognized by strangers. And choosing peace over fame can be a form of success that the public simply cannot measure. That is especially important when you consider what Cassie described about the years when she was most visible. The public saw photographs, the public saw events, the public saw smiles, the public saw a famous couple. But according to Cassie's testimony, the reality behind those images was dramatically different. That is one of the most disturbing elements of the entire story. The fact that someone can appear to have everything from the outside while privately experiencing something completely different. The clothes can look perfect, the photographs can look happy, the parties can look glamorous, the relationship can look powerful, and none of those images tell you what happens after the cameras stop. Cassie's story is a reminder that public visibility does not automatically reveal private reality. Sometimes it hides it, and perhaps that is another reason her decision to step away from the spotlight matters. She no longer needs to prove anything through appearances. She does not need to convince the public that she is happy. She does not need to explain every decision she makes. She does not need to keep herself visible simply because people remember her as a celebrity. She can simply live, and that seems to be exactly what she is doing. There is also something powerful about the timing. Cassie entered the public spotlight when she was young. Her debut came when she was just 20 years old. She had a successful song, a major record deal, and an entire future seemingly opening in front of her. At that age, fame can look like freedom, success can look like protection. Being connected to powerful people can look like security, but life can reveal things that you cannot see when you are young, and the person Cassie is at 40 appears to have a very different definition of what security means. Security may no longer mean being connected to the biggest people in entertainment. It may mean having a safe home, a supportive husband, children she can protect, financial independence, privacy, and the ability to make decisions without needing the approval of the entertainment industry. That is a completely different kind of success, and it is one that does not require a microphone. It does not require a record deal. It does not require a magazine cover. It does not require millions of followers. It requires something much more personal: choice. And after everything Cassie described in court, choice may be one of the most valuable things she could possibly have, because the central theme running through her account was the feeling that she did not have control. She described fear, she described dependence, she described coercion, she described a relationship in which power was heavily unbalanced. Now compare that with the life she appears to be creating. She chooses where she lives. She chooses what she posts. She chooses what happens with her children. She chooses what parts of her personal life the public sees. And she has chosen to stay away from the environment that once defined so much of her identity. That is not necessarily disappearance. It can be freedom. And maybe that is the real reason Cassie's 40th birthday feels so different from the way people expected it to look. If this were simply a celebrity story, people might expect a huge party, a fashion shoot, a magazine cover, a glamorous event, a long social media tribute. Instead, the most interesting thing about Cassie's 40th birthday may be that we probably won't see much of it, because she has chosen not to make it public. And after years of having her life discussed, photographed, analyzed, and interpreted by millions of people, that decision itself carries meaning. She does not owe the public access to her private life. She does not owe the entertainment industry a comeback. She does not owe anyone another album. She does not owe anyone another interview. She does not owe the cameras another appearance. She has already told the world what she wanted to tell it. Now she seems to want to live. And perhaps that is the most unexpected ending of all. Not another scandal, not another headline, not another dramatic comeback. Just a woman turning 40, raising her children, living with her husband, and choosing a quieter life somewhere outside the country where most of her public story unfolded. The world may call that disappearing. Cassie may call it peace.
At 40, she appears to be defining it for herself. Maybe that is why the idea that her life is sad feels incomplete. If someone measures happiness by fame, then Cassie has certainly stepped away from that world. But if happiness means a stable family, privacy, financial independence, and the freedom to choose your own future, then the picture looks completely different. It looks less like a fall and more like a beginning that came after an extremely painful chapter. A beginning that does not need to happen in front of an audience. A beginning that does not require a comeback. A beginning that belongs to her. So as Cassie Ventura reaches 40, perhaps the most important question is not what she lost. Perhaps it is what she gained. She gained distance from a world that had consumed much of her adult life. She gained the ability to protect her children. She gained a different kind of family life. She gained the freedom to decide how much of herself she wants to share. And most importantly, she appears to have gained something that cannot be bought with fame or money: choice. The ability to say no. The ability to walk away. The ability to live somewhere the cameras cannot follow. The ability to decide that her life does not have to be a public performance anymore. That is why Cassie's story should not simply be framed as the tragic fall of a former celebrity. It is a story about a woman who entered the entertainment industry very young, became connected to enormous power, experienced a deeply painful chapter that she later described under oath, and eventually made the decision to reclaim control over her life. The public may never know exactly where she lives. We may not know what her next career move will be. We may not know whether she will ever release another album. We may not know whether she will ever return to the spotlight. And honestly, that may be the point. For once, the public does not need to know. Cassie Ventura has spent years being known. Now she appears to want to simply be a mother, a wife, a person, someone living somewhere private with the people she loves. And maybe after everything that happened, that is not a sad ending at all. Maybe it is the first chapter of her life that truly belongs to her. Now we want to hear from you, fam. Do you think Cassie made the right decision by walking away from the spotlight and starting a new life somewhere private? Do you think the verdict in the federal case was fair? And what do you think her story reveals about the price women can pay when they become closely connected to powerful people in the entertainment industry? Let us know what you think in the comments below, because this is a conversation that deserves to continue. If this video gave you a different perspective on Cassie Ventura's story, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe so you do not miss the next one. We cover the stories that go deeper than the headlines, and Cassie Ventura's story is exactly that.